A very warm greetings to our beloved lecturer Mr. Hadi and my dear friends. I am Tharshana Nesaraja. In this video, I will be presenting about my assignment 2 of translation 1. For assignment 2, there were 2 parts for me to complete. For the first part, the source language or SL was English and the target language or TL was Malay. For the second part, the source language or SL was Malay and the target language or TL was English. In this video, I will be explaining about the techniques that I used for translating assignment 2 and the challenges I faced while translating. Now, I am going to explain about the techniques I used for translating. The first technique that I used for translating is literal translation. Literal translation is also known as direct translation or word-for-word translation. Literal translation is a translation of a text done by translating each word separately without looking at how the words are used together in a phrase or sentence. I used literal translation technique to translate "wind down your window" into "turunkan tingkap Anda." I also used this technique to translate "put a plant on your desk" into "letakkan tanaman di atas meja Anda." The second technique that I used for translating is transference. Transference is direct taking of a SL word into TL text with no translation. Transference technique will be used when proper names, geographical names, names of companies, names of institutions, and new technical terms do not have equivalents in TL. Firstly, I used the transference technique while translating "Kami telah menggunakan khidmat 4 orang porter dan seorang pemandu pelancong iaitu Aswin, Manish, Robin, Durga dan Nopras" into "We used the services of 4 porters and a tour guide who are Aswin, Manish, Robin, Durga and Nopras." The proper names Aswin, Manish, Robin, Durga and Nopras remained the same before and after translation since transference technique was used. Secondly, I used the technique while translating "Pendakian pada hari pertama memakan masa selama 7 jam dari Nayapul sehingga ke Ulleri dengan jarak 18.8 km. Kami mula mendaki pada pukul 9 pagi dan tiba di Biretanti pada pukul 5 petang. Into the climb on the first day took 7 hours from Nayapul to Ulleri at a distance of 18.8 km. We started climbing at 9 a.m. and reached Biretanti at 5 p.m. The geographical names Nayapul, Ulleri and Biretanti remained the same before and after translation since transference technique was used. Thirdly, I used the technique while translating "Semasa menuju ke Gorepani, kami ternampak bunga kebangsaan Nepal iaitu bunga rhododendron" into "While heading to Gorefani, we saw the national flower of Nepal which is rhododendron flower." The proper name rhododendron and geographical names Gorefani and Nepal remained the same before and after translation since transference technique was used. Lastly, I used the technique while translating "Akhirnya, setelah 2 jam mendaki, kami tiba di puncak Pun Hill. Kemudian, kami meneruskan perjalanan ke Tadapanipada pada pukul 10.30 pagi yang mengambil masa selama 6 jam. Finally, after 2 hours of climbing, we reached the summit of Pun Hill. Then, we proceeded to Tadapanipada at 10:30 a.m., which took 6 hours. The geographical names Pun Hill and Tadapanipada remained the same before and after translation since transference technique was used. The third technique that I used for translating is naturalization. Naturalization adapts the SL word first to the normal pronunciation, then to the normal morphology of the TL. Firstly, I used the technique while translating. There are plenty of sports and activities that will improve your health and boost your appreciation of the environment without having a negative impact on it, such as running, walking, and cycling. Terdapat banyak sukan dan aktiviti yang akan meningkatkan kesihatan Anda dan meningkatkan penghargaan Anda terhadap alam sekitar tanpa memberi impak negatif kepadanya, seperti berlari, berjalan, dan berbasikal. Naturalization technique was used to translate activities into activity, impact into impact, and negative into negative. Secondly, I used the technique while translating. Making sure you get enough sleep is a good way to stay healthy and boost your immune system. Lack of sleep puts extra pressure on your body and makes you susceptible to viruses. Memastikan Anda mendapat tidur yang mencukupi adalah cara yang baik untuk mengekalkan kesihatan dan meningkatkan sistem imun Anda. Kekurangan tidur memberikan tekanan tambahan kepada badan Anda dan menjadikan Anda terdedah kepada virus. Naturalization technique was used to translate immune into immune, system into system, and viruses into virus. Thirdly, I used the technique while translating. Kami telah menggunakan khidmat 4 orang porter dan seorang pemandu pelancong, yaitu Aswin, Manish, Robin, Durga, dan Nopras. Mereka membantu kami untuk menampak penginapan, makan minum, dan juga logistik. We used the services of 4 porters and a tour guide who are Aswin, Manish, Robin, Durga, and Nopras. They helped us to book accommodation, buy food and drinks, and even to book logistics. Naturalization technique was used to translate porter into porters and logistic into logistics. Lastly, I used the technique while translating. Sekali lagi, kekuatan mental dan fisikal diperlukan untuk mendaki ribuan anak tangga pada altitude yang tinggi. Again, mental and physical strength were needed to climb thousands of stairs at high altitudes. Naturalization technique was used to translate mental into mental, physical into physical, and altitude into altitudes. The fourth technique that I used for translating is modulation. Using a phrase that is different in the source and target languages to convey the same idea is called modulation. I used this technique to translate hari pertama into first day, hari kedua into second day, hari ketiga into third day, and hari keempat into fourth day. If literal translation technique was used to translate these phrases, then hari pertama would have been translated into day first, hari kedua into day second, hari ketiga into day third, and hari keempat into day fourth. And these are incorrect translations. So, modulation is the correct and suitable technique to translate those phrases. The fifth technique that I used for translating is functional equivalent. Functional equivalent is translating a word in the source language or text with a functionally equivalent target language word. I used this technique while translating "Kami menginap di rumah penginapan Himal" into "We stayed at the Himal Inn." Functional equivalent technique was used to translate "Rumah penginapan Himal" into "Himal Inn." Himal Inn can also be called Himal Homestay. The sixth technique that I used for translating is through translation. Through translation is the literal translation of common collocations, names of organizations, and components of compounds. It is also sometimes called calque or loan translation. I used this technique while translating "Kami menginap di Hotel Dhaulagiri yang mempunyai pemandangan terindah di dunia" into "We stayed at Dhaulagiri Hotel which has the most beautiful views of the world." Through translation technique was used to translate Hotel Dhaulagiri into Dhaulagiri Hotel. Now, I would like to share about the challenges I faced while translating. I faced difficulties in deciding the proper and suitable nouns. For example, when I wanted to translate plant to Malay, I couldn't decide easily whether to use tanaman or tumbuhan. Then, when I wanted to translate punca to English, I couldn't decide easily whether to use summit or peak. Nextly, I faced difficulties in distinguishing singular and plural nouns. For example, when I wanted to translate bunga rhododendron to English, I couldn't decide easily whether to use rhododendron flower or rhododendron flowers. Then, when I wanted to translate altitude to English, I couldn't decide easily whether to use altitude or altitudes. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.